Good afternoon, amazing scholars, and welcome to Learning with Avant-garde Books. I'm Cherie Hardy. I hope you and your family are doing well. Today's lesson will be about Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States of America. Before we get started, I would like for you to make sure you're in a very comfortable place and you're relaxed so that you can learn about the legacy and life of one of America's greatest presidents. Brilliant scholars, if you are listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or another platform, just know that you can actually watch this educational video. I will put a link in the description box. Never forget that you are amazing and your learning potential is limitless. I want to thank you for listening, watching, and learning with Avant-garde Books. I'm Cherie Hardy. Let's keep going. When former President Jimmy Carter died on December 29, 2024, at the age of 100 years old, one of his sons, James Chip Carter, made a statement on behalf of the family to the general public. Here are his words. My father was a hero, not only to me, but to everyone who believes in peace, human rights, and unselfish love. My brothers, sister, and I shared him with the rest of the world through these common beliefs. The world is our family because of the way he brought people together, and we thank you for honoring his memory by continuing to live these shared beliefs. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter was born on October 1st, 1924. He was the longest-lived American president. He died on December 29, 2024, at his home in Plains, Georgia. He was 100 years old. Carter became president in 1976 in the wake of the Watergate scandal and Vietnam War. His single term was rife with political and social issues. However, after leaving the White House, the former president redefined his legacy as a global humanitarian. President Carter was a humble peanut farmer with a broad smile from Plains, Georgia. He became the governor of Georgia in 1971 before winning the 1976 presidential race. During his inauguration, the president and the First Lady, Rosalynn Carter, stepped out of their bulletproof limousine to walk part of the route, illustrating their trust in the people. His crowning achievement in office was brokering a Mideast peace deal between Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin in 1978. The Camp David Accords helped inspire his presidential center and where he would establish most of his legacy. Carter's presidency is largely remembered for formidable challenges such as the energy crisis, high inflation, and staggering unemployment. President Carter made progress in foreign affairs, reopening U.S. relations with China and brokering a historic accord in the Arab-Israeli conflict. However, Carter's presidency was irreparably damaged by the Iran hostage crisis, in which 52 American diplomats were held for 444 days from November 4, 1979 to January 20, 1981. In 2002, the one-term president was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his untiring efforts to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economic and social development. Here is a quote by President Jimmy Carter. "We have no desire to be the world's policeman, but America does want to be the world's peacemaker." In this picture, boys and girls, President-elect Jimmy Carter leans over to shake hands with some of the people riding the Peanut Special to Washington, D.C. on January 19, 1977. They will travel all night, arriving in Washington in time for Carter's inauguration as president on January 20th. This photo is of Jimmy Carter giving his acceptance speech after accepting the Democratic nomination for president on the convention floor on July 15, 1976, at New York's Madison Square Garden. Boys and girls, this picture was taken on April 13, 1976, when Jimmy Carter was running for president. He is featured with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. and businessman Jesse Hill. During the campaign, Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. said, "I love and believe in him." In a prepared speech read by Atlanta businessman Jesse Hill, who is on the left, King said Carter has been for equal justice when it wasn't an easy thing to be for in the South. Here is another powerful quote by former President Jimmy Carter. "We become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hopes, different dreams." President Jimmy Carter and his wife, First Lady Rosalind Carter, are pictured with their daughter Amy at the first of 7 inaugural balls in Washington, D.C. on January 20th, 1977 at the Pension Building. In addition to being the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter was also a father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. In this picture taken many years ago, we have left to right Judy, Mrs. Jack Carter, Jason James Carter, Jack, who is John Williams Carter, Annette, Mrs. Jeff Carter, Jeff, Donnell Jeffrey Carter, First Lady Rosalind Carter, daughter Amy Lynn Carter, of course President Carter, daughter-in-law Karen Griffin Carter, holding James Earl Carter IV, and son Chip James Earl Carter III. This photo was taken on December the 10th, 2002 in Oslo, Norway, after former President Jimmy Carter gives a speech after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. Beautiful boys and girls, if you can't see this photo, make sure that you go to our educational YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link in the description box. In this photo, you will see then Jimmy Carter as a candidate for president. He's holding up a sign that says, "Nobody owns Jimmy Carter except the people." Here, President Jimmy Carter is being interviewed in the Oval Office of the White House in Washington, D.C. on January 24th, 1977. President Jimmy Carter speaks about energy before a joint session of the Congress in Washington on April 21st, 1977. House Speaker Thomas Tip O'Neill is at the right, and Vice President Walter Mondale is on the left. Guide Norm Guth steers a 20-foot diameter rubber raft carrying President Jimmy Carter and the president's family down the rushing water of Middle Fork of Idaho's Salmon River on August 22, 1978. Carter and his family spent 3 days on the Idaho Wilderness Stream. In this photo, President Jimmy Carter is flanked by Secretary of State Cyrus Vance, who is on the right, and Foreign Policy Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski left. They're walking toward a waiting helicopter to fly to nearby Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland on the south lawn of the White House in Washington on February 14, 1979. In this photo, President Jimmy Carter pauses to kiss his wife, First Lady Rosalynn Carter, as he boards a helicopter in Washington for a trip from the White House to Camp David, Maryland. This picture was taken on May 10, 1979, and President Carter and his wife Rosalynn Carter were married for 77 years. Here is another great quote by President Jimmy Carter. Thoughtful criticism and close scrutiny of all government officials by the press and the public are an important part of our democratic society. President Carter leans across the roof of his car to shake hands along the parade route through Bardstown, Kentucky on July 31, 1979. The president climbed on top of his car as the parade moved toward the high school gym, where a town meeting was held. In this photo, former President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalynn Carter wave from the podium of San Francisco's Moscone Center on Monday, July 16, 1984, before Carter addressed the opening session of the 1994 Democratic National Convention. President Carter once said, "Every day in the United States, 17 children are killed by gunfire. That's about 6,000 children each year who are killed by guns, as compared, for example, with about 3,000 a year who died at the height of the polio epidemic in the 1950s. We rose up as a society to fight against polio. Why do we not act more forcefully to halt today's even greater scourge?" Here is another photo with President Jimmy Carter and his wife, First Lady Rosalind Carter. This photo was taken on May 21st, 2007 in Violet, Louisiana. Both Carters are helping to build a Habitat for Humanity house. The pair were working on the 1,000th Habitat for Humanity house in the Gulf Coast region since Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. From left to right in this photo, you have President Barack Obama, former President Jimmy Carter, First Lady Michelle Obama, and former President Bill Clinton. They waved to the crowd from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. at the conclusion of a ceremony to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This photo was taken on August 28, 2013. On April 25, 2013, then President Barack Obama left stands with former Presidents George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Jimmy Carter at the dedication of the George W. Bush Presidential Library on the campus of Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Former President Jimmy Carter poses for a portrait during the Toronto International Film Festival on September 10, 2007, in Toronto, Canada. On May 2, 2015, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, on the right, shakes hands with our former U.S. President Jimmy Carter during their meeting in the West Bank city of Ramallah. In Atlanta on June 10, 2015, former President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind stand for the national anthem before a baseball game between the Atlanta Braves and the San Diego Padres. This image is of former President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind attending the memorial service of the 41st President of the United States, George H.W. Bush. Former Vice President Al Gore praised Jimmy Carter for living a life full of purpose, commitment, and kindness, and for being a lifelong role model for the entire environmental movement. Carter, who left the White House in 1981 after a landslide defeat to Ronald Reagan, concentrated on conflict resolution, defending democracy, and fighting disease in the developing world. Gore, who lost in the 2000 presidential election to George W. Bush, remains a leading advocate for action to fight climate change, Both won Nobel Peace Prizes. Gore said that it is a testament to his unyielding determination to help build a more just and peaceful world that Carter is often remembered equally for the work he did as president as he is for the leadership over the 42 years after he left office. Some people placed bouquets of flowers and peanuts at the base of a bust of former President Jimmy Carter at the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum on Sunday when he died, December 29, 2024. 2002, President Carter said, "War may sometimes be a necessary evil, but no matter how necessary, it is always an evil, never a good. We will not learn how to live together in peace by killing each other's children. The bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices." Wonderful boys and girls, never forget that you are amazing. Amazing boys and girls, thank you for listening, watching, and learning with Avant-garde Books. Don't forget to let us know what you learned today. Would you like to help us make more educational videos? Well, you can by simply subscribing to our YouTube channel made just for you. Thank you again for listening, watching, and learning with Avant-garde Books. Have a beautiful day.